Here we go on to stage 4. This one's an interesting one.
I love this, Dennis, and it just makes so much sense, but yet you got to think outside the box here.
Yeah. So the key to take and bake is that you have to do something that is going to be better than they can get in the frozen section of the grocery store. Now, recently in Vancouver, anyways, almost any of the high quality frozen prepared foods have been perpetually out of stock. So this opens up room for the restaurant. Now, you don't need to go in with pricing that's the same as the grocery store, but you do need to go in with something that is definitely freezable and definitely recoverable. And by recoverable, we mean that you need to have already tested yourself that in your packaging, in your whatever, they get a instructions sheet that teaches them either how to freeze it if you're not selling it frozen, right? Because the reality is in freezing, I think probably most restaurants owners know this, but some of our non-restaurant owners on this webinar may not. If you first put stuff in the fridge and get it as cold as it'll get, so 24 hours in the fridge before you freeze it, it'll actually be better quality coming out of the freezer. And that's because you already got it cold, so you didn't shock it as much. You didn't freeze it as much, which doesn't create as big of ice crystals. It's the same concept behind making ice cubes that are crystal clear. Anyways, it works with food too. So you teach them how to do that, and then you teach them how, when you take it out, and sometimes a frozen food is better to be thawed before you cook it because you'll get a better end result, and sometimes it's better to be cooked from frozen. You need to design your menu and tweak your menu and test your menu to make sure that you're not just selling a frozen pizza that is going to taste like crap when they heat it up. So you need to actually make the experience. A nice little instruction sheet. Okay, so step 1 is do this, step 2 is do this, step 3 is do this. You know, put it in a different container, put it on a different plate. No, heat it up in the thing we gave it to you. You need to teach them step by step and make sure that then what they're getting is they're getting a restaurant experience on their plate at the end of the process.
Yes.
Okay. Another key, which is really nice, restaurants love this one. Your normal restaurant portion, if you're dealing with sort of comfort foods. Oh, and by the way, comfort foods, casseroles, pastas, great big, huge, things that you can make in great big, massive batches are actually the things, and we're going to show some stats in a minute. These are actually the things that people want. So you're going to sell a 5-pack of shepherd's pies. Now, you want to make your portion size enough for 2. Now, here's the neat secret about that. Doesn't mean I didn't just double your food costs. No. Because it turns out that your portion size is way too big. In a restaurant, people eat it. You need to give them enough. You need them to walk out stuffed because somehow that's the weirdness of a comfort food feeling, right? You don't need that when you have fancy French food and stuff. You give them 29 courses and then they go have a Big Mac after. That's okay because that's a different style. In your comfort foods, in a restaurant, you're usually giving about 1.5 times what a normal person should ever eat, which is awesome, right? Great value. In the take and bake, what you need to do is give 2 portions. So that doesn't mean double your restaurant size. That means maybe 30 or 40 or 50% more food to take that up to a healthy 2-person at home. As soon as people go home, man, they don't eat as much as they will in your restaurant. You give them a plate like this in a restaurant, it becomes a challenge. At home, they will not put that much on their plate. So if you say that, whatever it is, the 9x6 lasagna reheatable things are a 2-person portion, it is. Even though 3/4 of that was a 1-person portion in your restaurant. So take and bake's really key to be comfort foods, easy to rebake, reheat, frozen or not frozen. You can sell them frozen or you can sell them not frozen, telling them to freeze them if they're not going to eat them in the next 3 days or whatever the rules are for that particular food you're selling. But take and bake, you will be shocked how many people will walk away with a 5-pack of lasagnas or a 5-pack of shepherd's pies. Because it turns out one of the things on everyone's mind is, I hate the delivery driver coming, because people using Uber Eats and some of these delivery drivers, oh my God, you don't even want to know that they touched your food, right? Let alone the bag that's around it. So when you solve the problem of they take 1 delivery and now you've actually solved the problem of, oh man, what am I going to do Thursday night? Because Thursday night I've got 4 webinars back to back. I'd like to say I got to take the kids to soccer, but right now that's not the case. But you're solving the problem of what do I do later in the week for an easy meal. And it turns out the stats say that is on people's minds way more than you can imagine. So now you've actually upped your average sale as a result of every What if every 10th person bought $50 worth of shepherd's pie from you? $50 worth of whatever your ethnic cuisine is that can be sold in a sort of family style portion. And you figured out the trick to reheating so that it's awesome. It could be fried chicken. It could be frozen croissants. It could be all kinds of stuff. So take and bake, super favorite. Well, and you've had experience with this, even with one of our clients who sampled their stuff and literally sold out in a couple of hours, was convinced it wouldn't work.
Well, you want to have a product that I wouldn't make. I mean, shepherd's pie is not an easy thing to make at home. I mean, you do it, but it takes a lot of effort. You got to make it all up. If I know I got it there, or an actual lasagna, I mean, I can't remember the last time I actually bought lasagna noodles and made a fresh lasagna. It's too much work.
And if you're worried about labor costs, which a lot of people are right now in Canada anyways, 75% of your labor costs are covered by the government. So you can actually make your lasagna by making your own noodles if you want, and it's still going to make you money. So now is the time to get the volumes up so that all of this starts working. But I'll tell you, if you go buy a prepackaged one from one of your suppliers and cut it into pieces and drop it in the tin, you will never sell more than the first order, and you might even lose a customer. Don't take the shortcut. You're better off to not do take and bake if you're not going to do it properly, which means a high-end product. Otherwise, I might as well just go to the grocery store, right? So here's the neat part. A poll by QSR said 29% were extremely interested and 39% were somewhat interested in heat and eat or take and bake meals, with 40% of them preferring comfort and classic foods like lasagna, shepherd's pie, burrito casserole, breakfast casserole, and such. These are the things that are easy for you to make the mega restaurant style pan. Cool it, cut it up, put it in the pan, freeze it, don't freeze it, sell it. There's a restaurant local in the outskirts of Vancouver that's literally doing $10,000 a week in take and bake lasagnas. They've converted their whole restaurant. They're not opening the restaurant again. They've never made so much money. Right. People come in and buy them 10 at a time for $8 each. So outside the box thinking, what if you're what if your restaurant has a pastry chef? Well, then it's interesting. It turns out that croissant dough freezes quite well. So if you freeze it ready to go, so they just take home and pop it in the oven and they have a fresh croissant in the morning in 20 minutes. And again, you need to figure out, do you need to tell them to defrost it for 30 minutes before they cook it? Do they need to cook it from frozen? That's up to your chef or your pastry chef to figure out the best way. Maybe they find they have to add a bit more flour to the recipe. Maybe they need to do something to make sure that it's an amazing croissant. So it's not as simple as just do what you're doing and freeze it instead of cooking it. You got to make sure it works. You got to make sure it's premium, because now you're going to get paid $2 or $3 for a frozen croissant in a bag of 6 or 12 instead of $5 for it baked, and you're going to make nothing but money. So thinking outside the box of what can you make that can do it? Take and bake when implemented as an add-on sale. Hey, would you like to get some of our shepherd pies? Oh my gosh, you got to teach your people who answer the phone to actually suggest a sell. Anyways, this overall can increase your sales 10% because it increases your average order size. And if you're delivering it yourself, it's going to increase dramatically how much you make. So take and bake sales increase overall sales by 10% by increasing the average order size, which means it's not a whole bunch of extra work. And all of them can be prepared in advance when you're otherwise closed. It's just, there's just no way for you not to win with taking
frozen cookie dough, Dennis. I mean,
yes,
cookies, making little cookies that you just go and throw them into the oven and make a fresh cookie in the morning with your coffee.
Man, I've been doing that forever. And, you know, pre-COVID, I would do all the mixing by hand because it was too lazy to pull out the KitchenAid, and I'd make a little tiny batch. Man, when COVID happened, I just pulled out the KitchenAid. I made a double batch of oatmeal cookies, and I didn't even bother to try to scoop the dough out and make it round. I mean, I just rolled the sucker out into a great big square, and I cut it into hunks. I threw it in the freezer, and I know that I can drop one of those cookies into the oven as I sit down to start eating lunch. And then my wife and I have a fresh baked, warm, ooey gooey, slightly crispy, slightly chewy. I've perfected the recipe because I've done it enough times. They come right out of the freezer. They last forever. And I do it in my house. Now imagine if you have the ultimate cookie recipe and you can sell them the great big mega cookies, because at home I'm cooking, I'm making little tiny ones like this because I don't want to get fat, but that's not the experience you want. You want to send them out so that they're going to get the super big, oversized, shouldn't be eating it, guilty pleasure cookie. And you're going to get almost as much for it as a piece of dough as you will cooked.
Yeah.
And you're going to sell 6 or 12 of them at a time on top of an order of whatever they had for dinner. Because now you just solved their dessert problem, their coffee snacks. Wow. Take and bake, folks. Call us. We'll give you advice for free. We'd love to just talk to you to find out what can you do to solve your community's problems. They're waiting for you to solve the problems.
They are doing that.